Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back. Now, government is set to present the 2018 budget. Its focus is going to be on industrialization and also how to maintain the gains made so far. Now, this Business Desk report has more.
According to government, the budget would look at consolidating some of the gains it has made when it comes to expenditure, which has been under control over the past months' inflation and economic growth. Sources say government would also want to use the 2018 budget to reduce the amount of money in relation to revenue mobilized. Government is hopeful some additional measures being implemented will help boost revenue mobilization, even though it has indicated that there would be further cuts in taxes announced in the 2018 budget. However, many would be looking forward to see how government would outline its fiscal policy, looking at the fact that revenue, as at the middle of this year, is still struggling to meet targets. There is also talked about the establishment of a fund mainly aimed at supporting small businesses that will also be announced in the 2018 budget. On the broader theme, government economic policy for next year would be guided by programs aimed at boosting agricultural and industrialization. One can talk about government, one district, one factory. This should mean that more funding would be allocated to this sector, so if you're a businessman operating in this area, there could be an opportunity for you in terms of soft credit. This is because sources close to government have maintained that they want these programs to be private sector led. Government is also expected to use the 2018 budget to give some detailed breakdown on how it intends to fully fund its flagship educational program, Free SHS. This would be the country's last budget that the IMF may have a greater say in terms of meeting some of the critical targets under the program, which is now expected to end in the first quarter of 2019.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been explaining why government would want to embark on the gains made so far.
Expect strong banks to do. So yeah, I expect there'll be some consolidations and mergers, but we will still keep a very Ghanaian face in the banking system.
Sorry, energy bond, what has happened to it?
Energy bond, the expectation is that structuring, etc., will be completed and that by the end of September will come to market. And that would be a big intervention.
Have you gotten all the commitment that you are hoping to secure so that it will be a successful one, of course?
I think it will be. I believe it will be successful. I think the indications so far are that the institutional investors will come into play, and so we should be all right.
Now, moving on, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, has called on the current government to conduct a forensic audit of all state projects that were funded by revenues from the oil and gas production. According to the committee, this is critical due to the nature of how some oil and gas earmarked funds were used over the past 6 years. The audit is expected to reveal how some contracts were awarded to some companies supposed to be funded from the Petroleum Revenue Management Act in the last administration. In an interview with Joy Business, a member of PIAC, Dr. Steve Mantiao, noted the audit will reveal how the funds are utilized on specific projects and improve transparency.
PIAC has on several occasions also raised the issue about poorly executed oil-funded projects, sometimes non-existent projects, supposed to be funded with oil revenue. The time has come for government to do a forensic audit of all oil-funded projects in this country and to bring to book anybody who has abused our common heritage, which is the revenue derived from the extraction of this important resource. And I think when we do that, it will serve as a deterrent for anybody who may be tempted to abuse the oil revenue because he thinks there will not be any consequences for his actions. PIAC has been able to establish that certain projects supposed to be funded with oil money were not undertaken. But we are not clothed with the power to investigate and to subpoena people to tender evidence and all that. There are institutions of state that have the power to invite people to appear before them and to answer questions. If PIAC were clothed with that mandate, we would have done that. But to the extent that there are institutions of state that have the power to do this, we are calling on government to set in motion those institutions to begin looking into the revelations arising out of PIAC's work and ensure that there's proper accountability for the revenues that are derived from the oil sector. PIAC is currently working in fulfillment of the mandates given to it by the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, Act 815. But on our public outreach, there seems to be a certain frustration on the part of many Ghanaians why there's not been enough progress made on implementing some of the recommendations of PIAC and bringing to book people who have been found to have maybe misused oil revenues. And this is what we are saying, that the response will rest with the institutions of states that are clothed with the power. What PIAC has asked for is a forensic audit of all oil-funded projects in this country. And that forensic audit should have its underpinning on value for money considerations. Because some of the expenditures have been very frivolous. In 2012, some of the expenditures have been clearly targeted at winning votes. For instance, the spending of 2 million Ghana cedis on the Musicians Association of Ghana was clearly intended to get the musicians to support the political campaigning of the government in power. There have been other expenditures that were targeted at the youth in road maintenance program, huge sums of money spent on that. LEAP, huge sums of money spent on that. Maslock, and all these things. For me, those expenditures.
All right, so it's on the marketplace, and my colleague Ebenezer Sabute, who was on the tour with the PIAC, has just joined me in the studio to give us some more updates. Welcome, Ebenezer.
Thank you.
Now, generally, where did the tour take you, and what was the outcome?
Okay, it took us to some parts of the eastern region, specifically Chebi, that's the president's hometown. We went to Apedua, we went to Lilo Krobo, went to Bon, and some other parts of the region as well. We went to Apedua, yeah, I mentioned it earlier. And the outcome was that, PIAC has the mandate to look at projects that were funded by the oil revenue from the oil, which is under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. So they were just trying to inspect that what has been reported is actually what is on the ground.
Okay.
But it doesn't seem to be the case. We went and some of the projects were non-existent. Others too.
Non-existent?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Others too were poorly delivered. I can cite example of a project in the president's hometown where there was a 6-unit classroom block. And if you look at how it is being constructed, I think it was in one of our pictures, our visuals that we showed earlier. The building was constructed at a very bad, location. When you look at the topography of the land and how erosion goes and where the building is being situated, it's a poorly delivered job. And some other parts of some other roads contracts too that even last for 3 years, but you could see that the roads were deteriorating. Not only that, but some other projects too. But apart from, according to PIAC, this came because they don't have the mandate to, prosecute or ask the people or the contractors to account for some of these monies. So what they need to do is only to inspect and ensure that some of the projects were done or not. And that is exactly what they are doing. They are now looking at other means of, getting people accountable.
So for what you're saying, it means that there is some financial losses that have been accrued because of this project. Failure to
exactly. There are so many financial losses.
Could you give us some figures?
Figures it will be premature if you ask me for figures now, because they are not going to collate all this. Don't forget, this is not the last project, or this is not the final project that was supposed to be done by the oil revenue money. You know, we started oil like 10 years ago, but this law has been in existence for the past 6 years. Okay. So this project started in, that was 6 years ago. So they now have to sit down and put all this together so that they can come out with figures. So I can tell you that indeed there were losses. There has been a loss, but to put figures to it, it will be premature to do that. But we'll get to know when we get
definitely. Now, so what is the impression of the indigents, the people that are supposed to benefit from the programs that have not come up after all?
Yeah, this is a very critical question because when we got there, some of them were even accusing us that we were spending their money, you know, but we just have to prove to them that no, we are not spending the money, but we are here to do our work as reporters who joined the team, the PIAC team, to monitor what was done and then report on it. So we indicated to them that yes, the projects were awarded, but in the case when it was not properly done, there are going to be, mechanisms to correct those measures. So
are they going to be re-awarded, those contracts? Are they going to be re-awarded and continue?
When necessary, yes. When necessary, yes. But the people were not happy with the turn of events, okay? For example, when we got to Bong, Odumase, Trumpon Junction Road, yes. Okay. I'll cite that as an example specifically, because the road was poorly done and the people there were like, we don't even know that this project is being funded by oil revenue. Wow. And interestingly, the contractors don't even know. When you ask them, what they say is that it is government of Ghana, so it is coming from the Ministry of Finance. As to whether it is coming from oil revenue, taxes, or whatever, they don't have any idea.
I thought PIAC was supposed to be organizing some kind of, fora with the people to tell them actually what's happening.
Yeah, so, but we all know when it comes to financing of PIAC, so they couldn't have. It is a challenge. So they couldn't have all it takes to organize. But after the inspection work, we did organize some forums. I remember we organized two fora. We organized one at Chebi and then we organized one at Somenya to tell the people that project A, B, and C are funded from the oil money. So anytime someone comes on board to do it, look at it, watch it carefully, so that you can give your judgment. So indeed, we organized some public fora. Right. We educated the people on it.
Okay. Now, why the call for a forensic audit? Why this particular call?
Okay, according to PIAC, some of the projects were not, properly done as it's supposed to be. Let me see if I can cite an example. Construction of 6-unit classroom block with auxiliary facilities at Apejua SDA Primary School. Okay. This project was poorly, conducted, and the petroleum money that was supposed to enter was 139,516 Ghana cedis. And when you look at this amount and what was on the ground, prior to our visit, you could see that no, you couldn't spend it doesn't match up to. Okay. And they were even telling us that in some cases they have to use other sources of funding. Let me put on record that this information could have come earlier, but it is because the PIAC was under-resourced, and then because last year was an election year and some other people were not too comfortable with some of the monitoring and inspection works that they were going to do. So we couldn't come out with this information to educate the people that this project is being funded from the oil money so that they could be able to monitor it and do critical analysis of what projects were going to be done.
All right, so with this financial challenge by the PIAC, is this forensic audit call really feasible, and who is supposed to carry out this audit?
It is feasible if we are going to look at the Petroleum Revenue Management Act once again. We all know that it is the PRMA that instituted the PIAC and then also gave earmarked funds for the PIAC.
Particular projects.
Exactly, PIAC and then the particular project. So if for instance, if the PRMA says they should give PIAC 0.9% of the oil revenue, and we want to do an audit, or we want PIAC mandate to be a bit amended, it means we have to touch the law. We have to look at amending the law. By so doing, we could be able to do this audit. But if we are not able to amend the law, the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, there's no way we are going to be able to do this. So indeed, yes, it is feasible. We can do it if we have the political way to do it. And when you listen to PIAC, they say, hey, you instructed us to do the work. So if you are interested in us doing the work, then give us the funds. amend the law so that we could be able to do the work. There were some instances where even the district chief executives or the municipal chief executives are not aware of some of the projects that were going on. We have to come in to tell them that, hey, the project A or project B is being funded from the oil revenue. And then there were an instance where the regional manager of highways, that's the Eastern Regional Manager of Highways, wasn't aware that a particular project is being funded from the oil revenue. He was just sitting down and we were telling him that
that's very interesting.
Very interesting. We have to come up with our papers and our documents to show him that this project is being funded from the oil revenue. Let me cite this example. Bitumen surfacing of New Tafo, Nobi, Samlesi, and Yaben Road in the Eastern region. Right. The manager couldn't, he was just lost that we were telling him that...
he didn't know anything about that project.
But another interesting thing that also came out from that particular project is that they were able to make some savings to raise a VO to do another still project in the region.
Right.
Different.
That's very, very interesting and revealing. Now, any other thing that came up that we need to know from this trip of yours?
Okay, from this trip, I can say that Ghanaians are a bit, awakened about some of the things that their oil revenue is doing for us. It is not too good, but at least since we have started, people are anxious to know the outcome. And this is the time that we as media, we are doing our bit, but PIAC also needs to be funded more so that they could be able to do much of this. With this is not only the last, this is not only this is not the last trip. There will be others, and then we'll be telling our viewers and our listeners how the revenue from oil has been used.
Thank you very much for that update, Ebenezer. Ebenezer Sabote bringing us up to speed with a tour by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee with regards to the usage of petroleum funds and the various projects that were earmarked for these funds. And still on the business, still on the marketplace, we're taking a short break. When we come back, we're delving into the bancassurance sector. Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back. Now, insurance companies have been challenged to improve the profitability of bancassurance products to sustain partnerships. Bancassurance is a model by which insurance companies use bank sales channels to distribute insurance products. Despite its contribution to insurance penetration in the country over the years, the managing director of quality insurance company Kobe Addison has been talking about the bancassurance, and he says the partnerships must be mutually beneficial to attract more banks to embrace the concept.
Since its inception, bancassurance has increased visibility for insurance products among the banked population. However, it is yet to make any appreciable impact on insurance penetration due to low interest margins. But according to the managing director of the QIC, Kobe Addison, the solution lies on insurance companies incentivizing banks with more mutually beneficial bancassurance products.
Bancassurance should be a mutually beneficial arrangement between the insurance companies and the banks. Currently, the banks may not be benefiting so much from bancassurance because their only source of revenue is the commission bit. And if you compare the commission bit to their interest revenue, the interest revenue far exceeds the commission bit. So insurance companies need to do more. Insurance companies need to create new bancassurance arrangements that will be mutually beneficial to the banks. Now, the main bancassurance arrangement is banks bring your client to base. We will sell insurance to them. All right. I know a few banks who are moving out of that, creating new products, mixing insurance and banking products and creating one product and give it to the clients. But bancassurance, for bancassurance to be sustainable in this country, it should be mutually beneficial to the banks and the insurance companies. And so we need to get to the point where revenue being created from bancassurance for banks, right, is big enough for banks to invest more in insurance products.
With insurance penetration at around 2%, Some stakeholders believe that encouraging the sale of insurance in banking halls will contribute to the growth of insurance and encourage more patronage.
Now, government, through the Millennium Excellence Foundation, has launched the maiden edition of the Ghana Expatriate Awards. Trade Minister Alan Kwadwo Kyerematen, who launched the awards, outlined key priorities under consideration to ensure Ghana increases its foreign direct investment capital from 8 to 20% in the coming years.
Speaking at the launch, Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen hinted of government's resolve to prioritize on increasing the rate of foreign direct investments into the country. The Trade Minister revealed that government in the coming days will implement policies to ensure it becomes the leading investment destination by 2020.
The World Bank has an index that seems to be signaling to countries all over the world as to those who are serious about investments and those who are not serious about investments. So on this index, they rank every country in the world. Ghana used to be one of the top performing countries on this index. Unfortunately, we've slipped back so badly that we are now 108 on this index, out of, I think, 145 or thereabout. Now, we intend, as the first pillar in this improvement of the business environment, that we will take action and implement reforms in all these 10 areas so that within the next 3 years, we'll move from where we are to the first in Africa, which is now occupied by Mauritius, and that's number 40 on the index. 3 years' time, look for us as number 1 in Africa. That is where we want to be.
The launch created a platform for investors and business leaders in the expatriate community to exchange ideas on best ways of doing business in Ghana. Joy Business spoke to some of them.
I mean, you can see from the growth in the cities, in the urban areas, and the rural areas, there's certainly been, we've gone a long way from 50 years ago. In the packaging sector, where our area is, it's 51 years ago, there was one player. We were one of the pioneers. Today, packaging probably employs 10,000 employees, etc., and with a lot of different plants all over the country. So certainly every sector has grown from 50 years ago. Yeah.
Over the 105 years of Japan Motors being in Gold Coast and Ghana, obviously, in any business, there are cycles. It has gone up and down. And I think over the last 6 months, the government is doing the right business-friendly policies. And I think it's improving. It's not as improving as what we like to expect, but I think we are all pointing in the right direction.
The Ghana Expatriate Awards will see captains of industry from the expatriate community awarded for their immense contribution to the development of the country. It takes place on December 8th.
And before we go, credit rating agency Fitch Ratings has affirmed Ghana at B with a stable outlook, citing medium-term growth potential and improving macroeconomic stability. It noted that falling inflation will allow the Bank of Ghana to continue lowering monetary policy rate and take other actions to loosen monetary policy. According to Fitch, Ghana's non-oil domestic output is expected to continue to grow as power provision improves, while banks continue to clear non-performing loans from their balance sheets. We'll bring you details and other analysis on this particular topic in our subsequent bulletins. And that's it for the marketplace for today. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Akwachi. Good afternoon.